The woods can be peaceful during the day. Sunlight filters through the trees, birds chirp, and the air smells of earth and pine. But at night, that's when the forest transforms. Every rustle becomes a threat. Every shadow seems alive. I've had my share of late-night encounters in the woods, and not all of them ended peacefully. It all started on a hunting trip with my cousin. We were deep in the forest, sitting near a stretch of power lines. The day was unusually quiet. No birds, no wind, just an eerie stillness. That's when we saw him. A man standing on a hill in the distance. He wasn't moving, just staring. At first, we thought he might be a fellow hunter or a hiker, but something about his stillness felt wrong. My cousin, ever the jokester, decided to provoke him. He raised his hand and flipped him off. The man didn't move at first. Then, suddenly, he started yelling. We couldn't hear the words clearly, but the tone was angry, almost feral. And then he started running toward us. When I say running, I don't mean a jog or a stumble. I mean full speed, arms pumping, feet pounding against the earth. My cousin and I froze for a split second, then bolted into the woods. Adrenaline surged as we zigzagged through the trees, trying to lose him. But no matter how fast we ran, he was faster. The sound of his heavy footsteps grew louder, closer. We could hear his ragged breathing, and it felt like he was right behind us. My cousin shouted, "This way!" and we veered toward a small creek, hoping the water would mask our trail. We finally reached camp, screaming for our parents. My dad and uncle came rushing out of the tent, armed with rifles. The man burst through the tree line seconds later. He looked wild. His clothes were dirty and torn, his face smeared with something that might have been mud or blood. My dad yelled for him to stop, but he didn't. He kept coming, pulling a knife from his belt. That's when my uncle fired a warning shot into the air. The man froze, his eyes wide with fury. For a moment, I thought he was going to lunge at us anyway. But then he turned and ran back into the woods, disappearing as quickly as he'd appeared. We reported the incident to the police, who told us there were transient camps in the area. They thought he might have been on drugs or mentally unstable. We never saw him again, but the memory of his face, his eyes full of rage, still haunts me. That wasn't my only brush with danger in the wilderness. Another time, my mom and I went camping near a river. It was supposed to be a peaceful getaway, just the two of us, but on the second night, a stranger showed up at our campsite. He didn't look like a hiker. No gear, no backpack. He just wandered out of the woods, saying he'd seen wild dogs nearby and wanted to protect us. My mom thanked him, but politely declined his offer to stay. He didn't leave. Instead, he sat down by our fire and pulled out a knife. He started sharpening it, the sound of metal scraping against stone filling the silence. My mom and I exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to do. We didn't sleep that night. By morning, he was gone. We packed up and left immediately. Weeks later, we saw his face on the news. He'd been arrested for multiple murders in the area. The woods have a way of luring you into a false sense of security. You think you're alone, safe, but you're not. I've seen glowing eyes staring at me from the darkness, heard laughter in the distance when there was supposed to be no one around. One night, I was camping with friends when we heard footsteps circling our tent. We called out, thinking it was another camper, but no one responded. The footsteps continued for hours, stopping whenever we shone a light outside. We didn't sleep that night either. Then there was the time I got lost while hiking alone. The sun was setting, and I realized I'd strayed too far from the trail. As I tried to find my way back, I started hearing whispers, soft, indistinct voices that seemed to come from all around me. At first, I thought it was the wind, but then I heard my name. It wasn't loud, just a faint whisper carried on the breeze. "Come this way," it said. I froze, my heart pounding. There was no one there, or at least no one I could see. I ran. I didn't care where I was going, as long as it was away from those voices. I eventually found the trail, but I never hiked alone again. The wilderness is beautiful, yes, but it's also unpredictable. It's a place where the rules of society don't apply, where anything or anyone can happen. So the next time you venture into the woods, remember this: you're not just sharing the space with animals and trees. There are other things out there, things that watch, things that wait. And sometimes they're closer than you think.